Picture this. You spend 2 years traveling the world with your kids, 40 countries, every type of accommodation imaginable, living out of bags. You finally find the place, a crumbling stone barn in the Italian Alps, sitting empty for decades, completely abandoned. You buy it, strip it back to the bones, and with your own hands start turning it into something extraordinary. 1.5 million people watch your video about it, your channel explodes, your dream is, by every visible measure, actually working, and then Italy tells you to leave. That's not where most people thought this story was going. But that's what really happened to Raising Voyagers, and the full picture is a lot more complicated and honestly a lot more interesting than any of their videos let on. Brady Jobson isn't your typical YouTube husband who picked up a camera because his wife wanted to start a blog. The guy has a proper video production background, and more importantly, he's been moving his entire life. At 6 years old, his family relocated to a different country. That kind of experience at that age doesn't leave you, it rewires how you understand permanence. Home stops feeling like a fixed address and starts feeling like something you carry with you. Then life did what life does. He ended up back in small-town Ohio, settled into the kind of routine he'd been raised to believe was the point of everything. Normal job, normal life, normal pace, and for a while he made peace with it. Then he went on a first date with Heather. She'd grown up in Ohio too. Her words, a small town, a quiet upbringing, a big dream that she'd mostly convinced herself wasn't realistic. But the two of them sat down together and ended up talking for hours about travel, not as a fantasy, as something they were genuinely going to do. Brady has said since that the moment he realized Heather was serious about it was one of the things he fell in love with. She wasn't just dreaming, she wanted to go. They got married, they had Alexa, they started dabbling in travel when they could. And the question that kept surfacing, louder each time, was the same one: why are we still waiting? The channel launched in November 2018, initially just a way to document their adventures, capture the girls at that age, keep memories. Brady's production background meant the quality was there from the start, but the channel wasn't the plan. The channel was a byproduct of a decision they'd already made before anyone was watching. In 2020, they answered the question they'd been carrying for years. They sold the house, sold both cars, sold the furniture, worked through the kids' toys, donated whatever was left. When the dust settled, they had around $40,000 and no lease, no mortgage, and no plan to return to either. Their daughters, Alexa, who wanted to be an astronaut, and Chloe, who was at the age where every insect and wildflower needed to be investigated, were young enough that the whole thing probably felt like one very long, very exciting trip. $40,000 sounds like a lot until you're feeding a family of 4 across multiple continents with no employer and no fixed income. The channel had to work. Brand deals, affiliate links, course revenue, Patreon, all of it had to pull weight. The romanticized version is the one they put on YouTube. The business version, which they rarely talked about, was a content operation running in the background at all times. But the content they were making was genuinely good. 40+ countries in under 2 years. Tree houses in Costa Rica, rural villages in Turkey, Indonesia, the Philippines, Australia. The channel wasn't just travel footage. It was a family actively choosing to live differently every single week on camera and somehow not falling apart. That's harder to manufacture than it looks. The audience grew, slowly and then faster. People weren't watching for the destinations. They were watching because Brady and Heather seemed to actually mean it. After 2 years on the road, something shifted. The constant movement that had felt freeing started feeling like it needed a foundation. Not a return to Ohio, they were clear on that, but somewhere they could actually build something. They spent about a month parked near Lake Como, looking at property. Northern Italy kept pulling them in. The culture, the pace, the mountains, the food, it had a specific gravity that the other places they'd loved didn't. They'd visited over 40 countries by then. They knew the difference between somewhere that was beautiful and somewhere that felt like it was meant for them. In October 2022, they found it, a stone barn in the foothills of the Italian Alps, 200 years old, abandoned for long enough that it had no electricity, no plumbing, and no running water. Legally classified as a barn, not a house, which meant that converting it into a home required them to navigate a labyrinth of EU regulations, permits, and inspections just to qualify for the reclassification. The property came with approximately $120,000 price tag, roughly $131,000. And it came with a donkey named Stella, who had been living on the land and who for the first few months of the renovation became the girls' unofficial mascot. Stella eventually went to a neighbor. Donkeys need other animals around them, and the family couldn't provide that. But she was there during the earliest days, watching Brady try to figure out where to even start with a structure that hadn't been touched in decades. The answer was, start with everything. Strip it back, understand the bones, and build from the ground up. They documented all of it. Every stage, every setback, every moment where it looked like this whole idea might have been insane. And at some point, Brady compressed months of footage into a single time-lapse. We bought an abandoned barn in Italy. 7-month renovation time-lapse restoring old stone house. 1.5 million views. Thousands of comments from people who had never heard of Raising Voyagers before that moment. The video unlocked something in people. Not just the renovation itself, but the specific proof that two completely regular people from Ohio had bought a condemned building in the European Alps and were actually turning it into a home, with their kids helping dig the foundation. Alexa and Chloe weren't props in the content. They were genuinely involved. They helped with construction work when it was safe to do so. Brady talked about those moments as family time, as a way to teach work ethic, as proof that every project was something they were doing together rather than performing for a camera. Whether viewers took that at face value or not, the content was compelling because it didn't look staged. It looked exhausting and real and occasionally chaotic, which is exactly what it was. The channel hit over 300,000 subscribers, then kept climbing. They found a waterfall on the property, they built a garden, they documented the EU permit process, the bureaucratic complications, the moments where the Italian renovation reality didn't match the Italian renovation dream. Their most successful video from that early Italy period, First Days on Our Property in the Italian Alps, pulled over 700,000 views. The Raising Voyagers machine was running at full speed. YouTube ads, brand partnerships, a travel hacking course, Patreon with 4 membership tiers ranging from $3 a video up to $175. The $175 tier came with a Zoom call, a brick engraved with your name, invitations to exclusive meetups, and access to investment opportunities after 3 months of support. They also organized group Italy trips, fans paying to spend time in the country with the family they'd been watching build a home there. It was a sophisticated operation, not just a family making videos, but there was something building in the background that none of that revenue could fix. Here's the part of the Raising Voyagers story that their audience mostly missed, or caught only in fragments. Italy has specific visa requirements for non-EU nationals who want to legally reside there. Brady and Heather had been living on the property while in various stages of the application process, but actually obtaining long-term legal residency in Italy as Americans is a different challenge entirely. It requires documentation, proof of passive income, healthcare coverage, and an application process that can stretch for months even when everything goes smoothly. For Raising Voyagers, it didn't go smoothly. After 8 months of preparation, 8 months of assembling paperwork, legal costs, and working through the process, they showed up at the visa office. Brady and Heather have spoken about the fact that they were filming at the office that day, expecting a positive outcome. They'd done everything they were supposed to do. 8 months is not a shortcut. 8 months is someone taking this seriously. The official denied them. No clear explanation. No specific reason that gave them a clear path to fixing it. Just a denial, and the particular kind of shock that comes when something you've invested that much time and energy into gets rejected in a single meeting. Heather posted about it publicly. They were all in a state of shock. They were fighting it. They had an attorney and were filing an appeal, with the lawyer citing case law and comparable situations in the appeal documentation. One of the more eyebrow-raising details that surfaced in discussions about this situation, the fact that they were filming inside the visa office at the time. People familiar with Italian bureaucratic culture were fairly direct about what they thought of that choice. Consulates and visa offices are not environments where cameras are typically welcomed, and turning up to what is essentially a formal government appointment with a camera running is the kind of thing that can sour an interaction before a word has been spoken. Whether that played any role in the outcome is impossible to know, but it's a detail that didn't go unnoticed. They appealed, they hired representation, they kept going. But at a certain point, the math changed. At some point after the visa denial, Raising Voyagers acquired land in Scotland. The details of exactly how this unfolded, the timing, the decision-making process, the conversation between Brady and Heather where they looked at each other and figured out what came next, were kept behind their Patreon paywall, not announced publicly, not a big video with a dramatic reveal, a Patreon-exclusive piece of content for paying subscribers. That decision itself says something worth thinking about. This was the biggest change in the channel's identity since they left Ohio. Their entire brand was built around this Italian renovation, this stone house, this life in the Alps. The audience had watched every stone get laid, and the news that they were leaving, or had left, wasn't something the public got for free. Whether you read that as a smart content strategy, or as the Jobsons managing a narrative they knew would be complicated, it's a choice that raised questions in their community. What's clear is this: Italy didn't work out the way it was supposed to. Not because the house wasn't incredible. By all appearances, the renovation was extraordinary, but because the legal right to actually live there full-time was taken away after nearly a year of trying to secure it. The dream was real. The barn was real. The work was real. The visa wasn't. So they went to Scotland, which, if you step back and look at the full arc of this family, is not actually surprising. Brady moved to a new country at 6. He and Heather sold everything at 34. They've never treated any chapter of their life as the final one. Scotland isn't a failure of the Italy plan. It's what happens when the Italy plan runs into a government official on a bad day, 8 months of paperwork, and a legal system that has no obligation to care how good your renovation videos are. The channel is still running. The content is still going out. They have over 340,000 subscribers and climbing, and the Scotland content appears to be building towards something similar to what made the Italy channel work. A new land, a new build, a family doing something almost nobody around them would attempt. There's one more piece of the Raising Voyagers story worth sitting with, and it's this: their travel hacking masterclass. The course teaching people to book first-class flights to Europe for around $95 has been part of their product lineup for some time. It's a bold claim. For reference, a standard first-class transatlantic ticket runs somewhere in the $5,000 range. The course is real, it exists, and it promises a specific and dramatic result. What doesn't exist, anywhere publicly accessible, is a single verifiable review from someone who has completed the course. No testimonials on the website, no success stories posted publicly, no third-party coverage of anyone who took the course and used what they learned. The only information about the course's value is inside the course itself, which requires payment to access. That doesn't make it a scam. Plenty of legitimate digital products have thin public review trails. But for a family whose brand is built on radical transparency, filming the visa office, filming the renovation disasters, filming the difficult days, the gap between how openly they share their life and how quietly they handle their course feedback is a notable inconsistency. It's the kind of thing their audience would probably appreciate more honesty about, and it's a thread that, once you notice it, makes you look at the Patreon tiers a little differently too. The $17.5 per video tier, the one promising exclusive investment opportunities, is not typical creator audience territory. That's a different kind of ask. So what really happened to Raising Voyagers? They built something extraordinary and then had it pulled out from under them by a bureaucratic process they had no control over. They spent 8 months preparing for a future in Italy, showed up to a single meeting, and walked out with a denial. They filed an appeal, they fought it, and eventually they pivoted. What they didn't do was quit. The Scotland land is being developed. The channel is still active. The family, as far as anyone can tell from the outside, is intact and moving. They're doing what they've always done, finding the next thing to build, pointing the camera at it, and figuring it out as they go. You can look at the visa denial as a failure, or you can look at it as the thing that happened to a family that was never going to stop moving anyway. Brady moved countries at 6. He sold everything at 34. He turned a condemned barn with no running water into a home his kids helped build with their own hands. When Italy said no, he found Scotland. Most people, handed a visa denial after 8 months of work, would go back to Ohio. They didn't. They just found a different mountain,